Hey guys, I'm back with a market update. I haven't been doing them for quite a while now, and I'm going back to my October videos, which I did on the topic that I sold off quite a significant stake of my US exposure back then on COVID fears and put it into some stocks that are mentioned here on the channel, but also on my Patreon. So let's revisit how this all went and how these stocks are doing. So in this video, I'm going to talk about the overall markets. I'm going to talk about my investments in Meituan, in Futu, in Tiger Broker. I'm going to do a catch up on Baidu stock, as well as talking a little bit about NIO and Huami. And last but not least, give you an update on my investment also in Bitcoin. Okay, so here we go. Remember when I made the videos about the sell-off and my shift into shares of Chinese stocks, we've actually been in quite a downward trend and finally found a bottom here. If you look at the Nasdaq, around 10,900 points, and then from then we now moved up more than 22% ultimately. So overall shares have been doing quite well, but now let's look more into specific. First of all, you can go back and revisit my videos about my proposition that I think it's time to put some exposure into Chinese stocks that are listed in the US. And so I shifted some of my investment into Meituan, into Futu, into Tiger Broker. I added to NIO, I added to Huami and on Baidu. And all of this I have made quite public and said that, well, we see that the Chinese economy is quite good at recovering right now. There's a big undervaluation because of the depression of the trade war and also because of all of the delisting fear around Chinese stocks. And in addition to that, because of the economic trouble and the proposition of what Bitcoin could actually offer in this turbulent times, I also made the proposition that I'm gonna try and double down on Bitcoin as much as I can, and actually I did that. So let's revisit. And I've been sharing many updates on these topics with my patrons here. It's a buying opportunity here, for instance, in the early of November. I wrote about the markets in general, and also about how Futu and Tiger Brokers maybe have a role in the combination with the delisting fears, that they could be a hedge and that I'm investing in that. So if you want to stay updated with that, just consider becoming a patron. Now let's first talk about Meituan. And I think Meituan is kind of a under the radar stock when it comes to China. All of the people are talking about the BAT, Baidu, Alibaba and Tencent. And I think Meituan doesn't get as much recognition as it should, and in fact they didn't have a really great run in the recent months and weeks. We are up 35% right now, but that's only because of a very recent run up actually, and I'm using here the ticker symbol for the US listed OTC Meituan stock. And the stock was actually quite long, very depressed, mainly also because of the fear around more investigations of the Chinese government into big tech in China. If you watched my latest videos and also read my Patreon post, you know that I think that Meituan was under attack wrongfully here, and that this actually was an investment opportunity. And it looks like now that investors are catching up with this proposition as well, and think that Meituan won't be at a direct exposure of new rules that will be coming into place in China. And also in general, I think Meituan has still quite a long way to go. It's not fully valued. I think actually it could have the long-term shot and value of becoming one of the really big Chinese companies, maybe even $1 trillion valued company, to be honest. And I haven't done a full valuation of Meituan yet, and because Meituan is very complex to analyze and to value as a company, but they're active in so many different business opportunities and in combination with some of the biggest tech trends around. So I'm very confident about this investment, and I think this run should actually only continue further. So I do think that Meituan is actually, even at these levels, and it's quite overextended now, still a buy in the long run. It's kind of the index fund for a Chinese tech investment besides Tencent in my views. Now let's look at Baidu, and Baidu had a really good run up finally. 86% is a massive gain for a stock that long hasn't been doing anything, to be honest. So it broke through several new levels, resistance levels, and it's just only going up further. And I think, well, the next really resistance will be around $272 a share. I mentioned in my last video that I think it's quite difficult to add onto Baidu right now at these levels because it's been running up quite high. But you may have also seen my business case on Baidu that and my first videos that I'm investing in Baidu, where I said that this should actually in the end become more than a $200 billion valued companies. Now the stock is mainly up on speculations around the EV plays, but what I'm always saying is that for me Baidu is actually a healthcare play and an artificial intelligence play. So yes, this autonomy and electric car aspect is something that Baidu has inherently in the stock baked in as well, and now finally investors are realizing that. So it's a nice hedge, for instance, to an investment in both Tesla and NIO if you want to have another approach towards autonomy, for instance. But what I'm mainly looking for this stock is actually in the long run that they become more active in the area of healthcare. So currently I'm not adding much more to Baidu. I think I would wait for a pullback here, but over time I think, as I just outlined, this is a 5 to 7x over the long run, and so I would be confident to keep adding to Baidu stock. As we've seen, even ARK Invest is buying at these levels even further up. So it's a good company. It's still kind of in the long run undervalued, so I think that will be a good player in the future. Then let's get to my outperformers here, and these are the stockbrokers Futu and Tiger, and I made posts about it and I said, like, guys, you can invest in Chinese the future of investment banking and brokerages with a combined market cap of less than $10 billion, which is amazing to see. Well, these times are over, and Futu has run up 240%, and let's see, Tiger's stock should be around similar, even higher. Yep. 286% up, and I always mention that Tiger is more of the volatile of those two, and is maybe also the more risky investment, but in general we see a big confirmation here of the trend that these stocks are quite undervalued. They have been undervalued in the past, so my initial price targets have now all been reached, actually even the price target for 2021. So I would say, if you're now asking yourself if you are late to the party, I have to say yes, unfortunately you are late to the party, at least for now. I would be waiting for a pullback, because if you look at the RSI here, it's quite overbought at these levels, and I still think that these stocks should be valued around where they are right now, at least going into 2021. I think Tiger should be valued around $16 a share, and for Futu, in my napkin investment case, I had a price target of around $70 for 2021, and all of these estimates are actually based on the growth, on the revenues and the prospects of those companies, and how they're actually comparing to some of the competitors, for instance Plus 500. I've been doing benchmarking with TD Ameritrade and FlatEx and so on, and I think just if those stocks are catching up with them, they could by 2023 become valued at $50 a share for Tiger and more than $200 a share for Futu. But for 2021, with this recent run up, they actually have already reached my personal price targets. So I would say if you haven't gotten in when I first mentioned them with my Patreon posts and also my videos before, then it's unfortunately a little bit too late to buy them at the good levels, to be honest. Now for NIO, and once again, please excuse this messy chart. This is all work in progress. We also had a decent run up, more than 100% in this time period. And obviously we're now more in a kind of a consolidation phase, and we need to see if the stock can actually break through this downward trend and then reach higher levels, more towards the price targets, for instance, of Deutsche Bank, which has a $70 price target. And I just shared in my Patreon-only community here with my Patreon supporters an interesting insight from Deutsche Bank analyst, which was a management meeting that they had with NIO. So this is not one of the price target reports, it's rather an intermediary meeting, which unfortunately is only open to those bankers, but interesting key takeaways here, for instance, regarding the hybrid solid-state battery, on which they are becoming more bullish and confident that NIO has actually something interesting in the works here. And the interesting part here is that with the swapping technology of NIO, that they can actually introduce this battery in a larger volume, thereby also driving down costs. So that was an interesting switch of the NIO business model to see here, which I think ultimately will have good implications on NIO, as well as their overall takeaway that NIO is becoming this really interesting brand, and with the recent moves with the pricing of the cars and so on, and now also their extensions, where I'm always talking about into e-commerce, I think this is the untapped potential that is now maybe also starting only to becoming realized by, for instance, the analysts with Deutsche Bank here. Now let's come to my stock pick that hasn't well performed, which is Huami. So they only had like a 30% run up, and it's quite weak from the chart technicals. So we're now at least sitting above this previous resistance around 14.70 cents US dollars here. Let's see if they can hold up. Actually, today they have a fireside chat with the CEO and CFO, on which I'm also going to take part, and I will be able to actually ask them some questions, which will be interesting to see. So maybe the stock has for once the opportunity to stay above those levels and actually looking for higher highs. I'm still confident about my investment in Huami and will definitely give you an update here, but obviously it hasn't performed as well, but still beating Nasdaq here in terms of performance if you've bought at the low levels in late October. So needless to say that I'm quite happy with my stock picks here. As you know, I'm concentrating my investments in just a couple of few opportunities. These are the opportunities that I'm also speaking about here on the channel. Definitely looking for more things to come in the future. So if you don't want to miss out, make at least sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell button so you get a notification whenever I post a new video, because my videos will not automatically appear at the front page of your YouTube. Okay, let's round this up and let's have a look at my other big investment. So I dedicated more and more towards Bitcoin, and now it's up 150% since those October levels, and quite recently had more than 20% of a sell-off. So people are actually these days quite concerned around Bitcoin. And once again, excuse this messy chart here, but I have to say, despite I'm not a technical analyst, far from it, Bitcoin is actually quite interesting to see here from the chart technical analysis, because I think it's quite actually almost predictable in what it is doing. So let me say this, I'm currently not really concerned with the recent sell-off, and I do think that we actually have found support levels here around 30,000 US dollars. And in my views, it's looking like it's going to bounce off these levels here and hopefully has a potential almost 30% until we meet another resistance level here. So I expect that it will jump actually above the 32,000 US dollars mark over the weekend. So I made the experience that during, for instance, the weekends, but also like holidays or, for instance, Christmas, Bitcoin makes the biggest moves when you are not able to do any other trading in the markets, and when unfortunately maybe some people are missing out because they don't have the funds and the banks are closed. Quite the contrary is obviously happening with the Bitcoin network. Bitcoin network is always on, and well, I actually think in 2021 this run will continue. We have possibly a 10x ahead of us. That's how bullish I am on Bitcoin. So I do think actually currently this kind of a consolidation here with the bottom reached, in my point of view here, would be good buy levels. I have doubled down countless times now in this recent run up. So I'm now sitting at a quite big position. So that should be quite good in terms of if we are going into a massive bull run from here. And I will definitely dive more into how this actually relates also to the US and China relations and what we are actually currently seeing in the economy, and definitely also gonna talk more about my 2021 picks when it comes to the China opportunities, so Chinese US listed stocks, but also stocks like Tesla that have a big exposure to the Chinese market. So definitely make sure to become a patron, to subscribe and like, and share this information with others that might be interested to actually look to Chinese stocks in 2021, because I think actually, frankly, that's going to be a big topic. Lots of the fundamentals are speaking for it. China is underrepresented and really undervalued for now. Definitely need to make sure to pick the right ones. For instance, also with Tiger Broker, there is risk attached to it. They have some problems with, for instance, a board member that is also aligned with a company called GSX Tech Education, which had short seller reports focused at them. So it's risky in some ways. We have lots of fear and uncertainty around these stocks. But in my views, and that's what I'm always writing in my Patreon posts and talking here on my channel, this is mostly buying opportunities, because in the long run, you cannot keep those fundamentals down. And China is just a really exciting place in terms of the technology and innovation coming out from this country. And so I think there are a couple of good investment opportunities out there. So let me know what you think about these stock picks. I hope you picked up some of them, maybe based on what I have been sharing here on the channel. Otherwise, do let me know which other stocks you are looking forward to have me covered here on the channel. And then, yeah, just stay tuned, as I will be outlining my latest stock picks for 2021 as well. So thank you guys for watching, and enjoy this weekend.